to begin making our Moroccan tile tote, you are going to need your base color. I'm going to be using white and some accent colors for your actual tiles. So I'm going to do the blues from the dark to the light. I have those ready to go, but we're just going to start with our base color, and it'll be like the grout lines between the tiles and also the bottom of the bag and the handles. So your main color is what we're going to start with. You'll need scissors, a hook that goes with your yarn, and some stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can use safety pins. You can also use paper clips or hair, what do they call those? Hairpins? Hair clips? No. Bobby pins. But luckily I have my stitch markers ready. The other thing to think about is if you want a firm base in the bottom of your bag, I'll show you as we get going, but if you do want to put or have the option of putting insert into the bottom of your bag to keep the bottom of your bag straight and firm, get a tray or whatever you have, a lid, anything you have around the house or from the grocery store that you think would be the right size for the bottom of your bag, and then make your chain the same length as your insert, whatever you use for your insert, and then as many rows here, but multiples of 3. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be starting with multiple. I'm going to be starting by making a chain of 45. So you just make a slip knot, put it on your hook, adjust it so it's on your shaft of your hook and slides easily, and then just start making your foundation chain by grabbing your yarn and bringing it back in multiples of 3. So I'm going to be making 45. If you don't have a specific number in mind, you can also just count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then ask yourself, is it long enough? And then keep going until it's the right length. Also, if you chain tightly, you can go up a size for your hook. And because we're going to start by making the bottom of our bag, you don't want to use a super big hook. You want to use the smaller option that comes with your yarn. So I'm using a 5mm today, and I'm also using a 5mm for my chain. But I could have gone up to a 5.5 if I wanted to. There, my chain's ready. I'm going to chain 1 for my turning chain, and into the second loop from the hook. So this is the first loop, or the first chain, and this is the second chain. So into the second chain from my hook, I'm going to push in my hook, grab my yarn and bring it back, wrap my yarn and take off 2. So that's a single crochet. Push your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. Push your hook in, grab the yarn and bring it back, wrap the yarn and take off 2. So you're going to be doing this into every stitch all the way back down your chain. So do this all the way down your chain until you get to the very end. Here we are. I have one more chain left to do. We don't count this knot. So the knot is not a stitch, just the real V. So that's my last single crochet. Now to turn your work, you chain 1, turn your work so you're working back along it, pull your chain, let me get my yarn ready, pull your chain and your hook a little to the side so you can see your first stitch. This is your first stitch right here. So if you have your work up, your hook on top, it can be confusing as to what your first stitch is. So we go like that. But pull your hook to the side and you'll see that that's your first real stitch. So go into that stitch, getting both of those V's, both of the loops of the V onto your hook, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So now we're just doing single crochets all the way back along your work, same as we did before. And this is how you're going to be doing it the whole way until you have your piece the same width you'd like for your bag, the bottom of your bag. So, and you're going to be doing a multiple of 3 rows. So all the way to the end of this row, chain 1, turn your work, and go into that very first stitch. At the end of the row, work into your last stitches, single crochet, and this is your last stitch here. It's a bit on an angle. Push your hook into that top part, going underneath both loops of that V, and do your last single crochet. Chain 1, turn your work, pull your hook to the side so you can see your first stitch, and go into that first stitch with a single crochet and all the way back. So this is my third row. What you can do now, because it's easier to keep track of, put your stitch marker in to the side of that stitch there, so you know that this is 3 rows. I'll show you how to count later, but if it gets confusing, if you're not sure how to count your rows, you can put a stitch marker in every third row that you start, and then you know that where this stitch marker is, this is your third row. And then you just count your stitch markers for how many you have that are 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that might help you. If it does, please do it. And I have already completed my base of my bag. So I have my 45 stitches across, and I have made 27 rows going up. So how to count your rows? You can kind of see there's lines going across. Let me use a needle. Like there's a line here and a line here, these lines there. That's 2 rows. So each of those obvious lines is 2 rows. So depending what side you want to start on, I think it's easier looking from this way. Let me zoom in for you. So you can see here there's a line and a line and a line and a line. So that's 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, up and up and up. So there I have 27 rows, which is divisible by 3, which we need for our tiles. Just a note about making your rows, making your base the width that you want it to be. I wanted mine to be 27. I want 27 single crochets going along my edge, because that's divisible by 3. So I need to make 28 rows, because we're going to be working our stitches into the spaces between the rows, not into the row. We're just going straight into the next stitch. So into this hole here, this first hole, single crochet, this next one here, single crochet, this next hole here, single crochet. Can you see where I'm going into? Every one of these holes along the edge, I'm going to make a stitch, and that should work out to 27. So into those holes. If you're not sure if you've gone into the hole, pull your hook, move your hook, and that'll show you where your yarn is going into. So I know I've gone into there, so I'm going to go into this next one. So you're just doing single crochet into each of these holes all the way down your work, making sure that your rows were divisible by 3, or in a multiple of 3. So here I'm almost at the end, so I'm just going to count back to make sure I have 27, not including where I have my stitch marker, because that stitch is on this side. So I want 27 on this side. So I'm making my last single crochet into that last space, and make sure you have your right number of stitches, not including where you have your stitch marker. That's the last stitch on this side. But make sure after this stitch marker and up until what's underneath your hook, you have the right number of stitches. I needed 27, so I have 27. If you're off, you can do a decrease somewhere, or you can go into a stitch and make an extra one. Try not to do it in the exact same spot. Try to pick like into a stitch or something to make an extra stitch, if you don't mind not being so perfect. Now into this last, we're not doing anything to the corner, we're not doing any increasing. Pull it down, and I'm going to work over my tail. So I've gone into this stitch here. Now I'm going to go into, let me show you up here. I'm going to go into this first stitch of my chain. So I'm going to go into that first stitch. There's my slip knot. I'm going into this stitch. I'm going to work over my tail, and I'm making a single crochet. So that's my first single crochet of this side. So I'm also going to put a little stitch marker there just to make sure I know where my side is going to be. And then into every stitch, so you're going to have the same number of stitches along here. I'm going to have 45. You're going to have as many as you do for yours. And we're going to count again at the end of this row to make sure that we have the right number. And you can do your adjustment this row if you need to add a stitch. It's at the very bottom of your bag, so it's the least obvious if you don't want to frog it and go back and do it again. So work one single crochet into each of your foundation chains, and I will meet you at the next corner. As we get close to the corner, one single crochet into each stitch. This is my last one here. So that's my last single crochet of this row. I'm just going to put a stitch marker in there so I can see it. And I'm going to turn my work and make my next single crochet into this next hole that does not have a single crochet. So no adding anything into your corners, you're just going straight onto this side with your first single crochet. So that's my first of 27 that I'm going to do, and I'm making one into each hole on this side. Each row of single crochet is getting a single crochet on this edge. So I'm just working one into each hole. Into our last hole on this side, we make a single crochet. So that should finish up this side. And now go back and count, not including where your stitch marker is. That was your last stitch from your side. We're going to count the stitches along the end. So not where the stitch marker is, but all the stitches afterwards, including the one you just made with your hook. Not what's on your hook, but the one you've just made. So here we are at the end of our row. I'm going to slip stitch to this first single crochet, that first stitch of this row, under both loops, slip stitch to join, chain one, and single crochet into that same stitch. And put a stitch marker on it, so you know that that is the first stitch of the long side. When you're coming around, you'll know where that is. Now single crochet into each stitch all the way around. You're not doing anything in your corners. You're just one single crochet into every single crochet until you reach this stitch marker again. That's where you're going to join. You're going to finish your round. So we're going to do this all the way around, and I'll meet you at the next corner just to make sure we're clear. Single crochet all the way around. These stitch markers can come out now. These ones we use to mark our first row to count our stitches. All those can come out. The only stitch marker I'm leaving in is that first stitch of this round we did. Slip stitch and then a single crochet. I put a stitch marker in that single crochet. So let's keep track of that one. The rest don't matter. I'll see you when you get to this corner, just to make sure. So we're getting close to this corner. I'm not going to do anything different. One single crochet into each stitch. No adding, no making a corner, just one single crochet into each stitch all the way around until we get to our nice stitch marker. Now just a note about our corner where we're joining. Remember where we do our slip stitch and then our single crochet, we get an extra stitch on the side. So ignore that last stitch before your stitch marker, or else your stitch count will be wrong. So, because that one was just part of our joining. So I'm going to skip this one right before and go straight into that stitch where my stitch marker is and make a slip stitch. See how that makes it look like a stitch there? And now I'm doing a single crochet into that same spot. So when you come around, you have to ignore this slip stitch. And into that same stitch again, the single crochet we just made, I'm going to put my stitch marker back. So that is my first single crochet of round 2. Now I'm going to keep going all the way around until the side of my bag is, I want it about maybe 1.5 inches of white. So I might do about 5 rows going all the way around like this. And you can see how it's starting to curl up in the corners. It's starting to turn into a little bag, a bag base, which is super cute. So I'm going to go around until I have 1.5 inches or 2 inches of white, because I want the base of the bag to be solid, and then we'll start with the tiles. So keep making these rounds, moving your stitch marker from row to row until your height of the edge, the bottom of your bag, until the height of the bottom of your bag is the height you want. Here we are back at that join. So I've gone into this stitch. This is where our stitch marker is our first single crochet of this side, the long side. And the one before is our slip stitch. So we're skipping that one into the single crochet with our stitch marker, slip stitch to join, and into that same stitch, go back in and make your first single crochet. So there's our first single crochet. And I move my stitch marker up to our first single crochet, and when I come around I'm skipping that slip stitch from before, so that'll help our side come up like our other sides are coming up. I've just finished my 6th row, including our first row, and I'm going to skip that slip stitch and slip stitch to our first single crochet of that row and take out my stitch marker. Slip stitch to join, and now we're going to do something a little different. We are going to make single crochets with a chain 2 in between. So to be my single crochet, I'm going to chain 1 and then chain 2 for my chain 2, so a total of chain 3, and then we're going to skip 2 stitches and single crochet into the 3rd. So where my chain is coming out of is my first stitch, so I'm going to skip 1, 2 and single crochet here into the 3rd, and then chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 stitches, single crochet into the 3rd, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, single crochet into the 3rd. So we're going to do this all the way around. We're making like these chain spaces, these loops all the way around. So that is our first row. So I did my single crochet, I'll chain 2, skip 2 stitches and go into the 3rd with a single crochet, chain 2, skip 2 stitches into the 3rd with a single crochet. So go all the way around and I will meet you back over here in that first chain that we made. We're going to slip stitch over there. So work your way around single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, and I'll meet you at the beginning. So I'm back around to the beginning. I've done my single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 stitches, and we're right back to this beginning one. So I'm going to slip stitch right where this chain is to the first chain 1 that we did. So slip stitch to the chain 1, slip stitch, pull up a loop, and I'm going to put my stitch marker back so I don't lose that stitch, because now we are moving on to another color. So now how we've been working our bottom of our bag, the inside here, this part is going to be the outside. So I'm going to flip it around now, mostly on the ends here. So that's the pretty side. That's how tall my walls are going to be at the bottom. Like so. And now we're ready to start our tiles. I'm going to join in the same area